This is Rally to Righteousness. Welcome to today's video. This is part 4 of our ongoing series, Level Up Your Knowledge, a Guide for New Christians. Today's topic will answer the question, where do I start when reading the Bible? But before delving into today's topic, let's take a minute to review part 3. In part 3's video, we discussed and looked at an introduction to the Bible. We talked about several different topics, such as how many books were contained in the Bible, who wrote the Bible, and then more sections of the Bible, such as the New Testament and the Old Testament, as well as more Bible tips. Let's get started with today's topic. Where do I start with the Bible?
Power up!
When answering the question, where do I start with the Bible, or where should I start first reading the Bible, the most suggested book for beginners is the 4th book in the New Testament, the Book of John. This is sometimes also called the Gospel of John. The Book of John, also called the 4th Gospel or eyewitness testimony from the apostles of Jesus. Gospel means good news in the Greek. It refers to the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Now let's take a look at a brief summary of the Gospel of John. The Gospel of John was written by the Apostle John. John was one of the first disciples that Jesus selected. When he was selected by Christ, John was a fisherman. John wrote in his gospel what he saw. This was an eyewitness account of the daily life of Jesus Christ, as well as the miracles and teachings that Christ presented. John focused on proving Jesus' divinity. He wants to show Jesus to be the Son of God through his writing. John writes in his gospel the purpose and reason for him writing his gospel. He writes this in John chapter 20, verse 31. He says, "But these things have been written, that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you might have life in his name." So you might be asking, what does this verse even mean? John is writing this towards the end of his gospel. He has already presented the teachings of Christ, the events that lead up to Christ's life, death, and resurrection, as well as several miracles that Christ conducted during his life. You'll notice in the verse that you must believe in Christ in order to have this life that he's speaking of. So a central tenet from this verse, as well as John's gospel, is that by hearing the gospel and having faith, you can build belief, which leads to life with Christ. So now you know which book to read first, but how do you read it? For starters, do not get overwhelmed and set unrealistic goals for reading and understanding the text. People have studied the Bible for hundreds of years and may not even have scratched the surface of all of it. Pick a doable goal, such as 1 chapter a day or even a few verses a day. Read only the amount that you can understand in one setting. But most importantly, before you start reading the Bible, pray and ask God to provide you with understanding. To increase the comprehension of what you're reading, try to ask questions of the text itself. For example, why did Jesus turn water into wine? To answer this question, I actually sought the use of a commentary. I believe it was the Faith Life commentary. Let's take a look at the verses that show where Jesus turns water into wine. These are located in the book of John, chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. The King James Version says, "And the 3rd day there was a marriage in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. And both Jesus was called and his disciples to the marriage. And when they wanted wine, the mother of Jesus said unto him, They have no wine. Jesus said unto her, Woman, what have I to do with thee? Mine hour is not yet come. His mother said unto the servants, Whatsoever he saith unto you, do it. And there were set there 6 water pots of stone, after the manner of purifying of the Jews, containing 2 or 3 firkins apiece. Jesus said unto them, Fill the water pots with water. And they filled them up to the brim. And he said unto them, Draw out now, and bear unto the governor of the feast. And they bare it. When the ruler of the feast had tasted the water that was made to wine, and knew not whence it was, but the servants which drew the water knew, the governor of the feast called the bridegroom, and said unto him, Every man at the beginning doth set forth good wine, and when men have well drunk, then that which is worse, but thou hast kept the good wine until now. This beginning of miracles did Jesus in Cana of Galilee, and manifested forth his glory, and his disciples believed on him. Turning water into wine seems kind of like a funny miracle for Christ to do. When looking through commentary, I kind of found out that it was possible in certain circumstances to take legal action against the man who failed to provide an appropriate wedding gift. The bridegroom and family here might have been involved in a financial liability for failing to provide adequately for their guests. This could also negatively affect the person's career who was the bridegroom. Taking into consideration that there could be financial liability or someone could get sued over such things of not having enough wine for a wedding, in this context, the request to turn water into wine does make more sense. If you find yourself just like me and having difficulty on understanding a certain text, go ahead and stop and take a moment and ask more questions of yourself. You could, again, seek the help of a commentary. Also, you should ask your mentor, pastor, or other Christians that you trust about the passages if you need help. Again, Bible commentaries can help, but it's always best to have conversations about the Bible with others. You can help yourself learn, as well as the person that you're talking to might also learn something. Thank you again for taking the time to listen to this humble video. Stay tuned for part 5, which will be coming soon. Thank you.